Welcome again to another episode of MindTalk. I would like to thank you once again for joining me on this fifth episode of MindTalk, where we talk about mental wellness and focus on bipolar disorder. That's the topic for this season. So, this week, I would like to dive deep into the symptoms of bipolar. Last week, we spoke about the prodromal stage, which is the precursor to the major episode, right, for bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. This week, I would like to focus on the major episodes of bipolar, the symptoms, and how one who is living with bipolar reacts to the symptoms. So I'm not going to go deep into the definition of what bipolar is. This is the fifth episode, and by now, granted that you have been following with my podcast, we should have a general idea of what bipolar disorder is, right? But I'm just going to give you like a rough, definition of it, right? So let's take back to our second episode where we spoke with Mr. Hanif Benjamin, the clinical therapist and traumatologist, and he described bipolar as a mental illness of the mind that causes mood episodes that can cause the person who is suffering with the mental illness the inability to function with their daily lives because of the symptoms that comes with bipolar. So we know that bipolar basically comes in three types, which are bipolar 1, where you have one major manic episode, and it's followed by a hypomanic or a depressive episode. Bipolar 2, where you have at least one major depressive episode, and it's followed by, or you have at least one hypomanic episode. A hypomanic is like a less severe manic episode. Then we have cyclothymic disorder, which is basically type 1 and type 2, but in less severe versions. Okay, so last week, I said we spoke about the prodromal stages, which is actually the stage that is the precursor to your major episodes, whether it's bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. So the prodromal stage are basically signs of your symptoms that you experience during your major episodes, but in less severe cases. And we mentioned that it is important to identify these signs so you can get ready for the major episodes when it comes on, because as I said, it's a precursor. It's the signs that get ready for the major episodes, whether it's in bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. So I did my research. After doing my research on the symptoms for the major episodes, I've been realizing that the symptoms for the major episodes are actually similar to the prodromal stages. And what I am made to believe now, that the prodromal stages, the prodromal symptoms are minor or less severe symptoms of the major symptoms. So, for example, one major symptom for manic is abnormal, upbeat, and jumpy behavior, and prodromal has elevated mood or increased activity. So you can see where it is like literally similar to each other. So I am being made to believe that the prodromal symptoms are just less severe symptoms of the major symptoms. It's not too different from each other. So the abnormal, upbeat, and jumpy behavior for the manic episode, it is very it is one of the signs where you can actually distinguish bipolar disorder, because of the change of behavior. Someone may be, someone who you know closely, especially if you know the person, you see someone who you know who suffers with bipolar disorder. You can see the change in the behavior. 1 minute they are like, docile and I want to say normal, but eventually when the manic episode comes on, they get very upbeat, they get jumpy, they start to pace around, they start to walk up and down, they have increased activity, energy, and another symptom that comes with this too is agitation. Well, as I discussed, I am diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is the depressive type. However, the bipolar 2 comes with hypomania. Well, you get at least one hypomania episode. I have never really experienced hypomania, or I may not know if I could identify it. And that's the funny thing with bipolar, you wouldn't know, because this is your regular self doing what it does, in cycles, so it comes normal to you. However, after reviewing the symptoms, I think I can now identify some instances where I've experienced mania or hypomania. For instance, I will have ideas like I want to write a book, and this is how it comes in my mind. Like I want to write a book, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to write the book. I just go into this whole spiral of what the book is going to be like. I start YouTube videos on how to write books or how to write a screenplay. I just go into this rabbit hole, and that's basically how it is for me. And I would be pacing up and down my house, especially if I'm alone. If I live with my mom, so if my mom's around, I wouldn't really do it because I am aware that what I'm doing is weird. However, once I have like an idea in my head and I need to express it in some way, or my mind is racing, I will be up and down, pacing from my bedroom to the kitchen, back, and just walking, thinking, and probably sometimes talking to myself. And the thing with that is that manic stage, which I am now believing that is manic stage, it goes away. It is very fleeting. One moment I want to write a screenplay, and I'm thinking of the type of show, genre, characters, everything down to a T, writing it down, everything, and then after, I have no interest in it anymore. I have no interest in it anymore. And like I said, now that I'm now doing my own research, is where I am now realizing that I may have been going through manic stages and didn't even know it. And did not even know it. And to be honest, I do not think it's the only one. Actually, it is not the only one. Moving forward, exaggerated sense of well-being and self-confidence. And we have decreased need for sleep. So remember in last week's episode where we spoke about the prodromal stage for manic behavior, one of the symptoms was actually decreased sleep. And from the source, Dr. Tracy Mark, she said that when someone is in their manic prodromal stage, they tend to don't feel the need to sleep because their mind is prioritized with probably a different with a project or some type of hobby or something that their mind is distracting them from. So they may not feel for the need to sleep. They might be up late in the night being distracted by whatever project they are doing. And in what I'm seeing here in the manic stage, it is very similar. So you can see how the prodromal stages that we spoke about last week is actually in fact less severe or probably very similar to the major episodes in bipolar disorder. Other symptoms are unusual talkativeness, racing thoughts, distractibility, and poor decision making. For example, going on buying sprees, taking sexual risks, or making foolish investments. I just want to remind you that these are not just symptoms from major episodes but hypomanic behavior as well. And the last 4 symptoms that I just listed, I actually do relate to those. Again, I do not realize it is actually the hypomanic stage, or didn't realize, but now I can actually identify the difference between how I am today, and which I'm actually fine, opposed to when I'm having a boost in my mood. And that's basically how I would describe it. It's a boost in my mood. So the unusual talkativeness, the racing thoughts, again, when I mentioned me all of a sudden want to be a screenwriter, unusual talkativeness, sometimes I've been told that, I kind of lose my boundaries when I'm speaking to someone, because I wouldn't say inappropriate things, but sometimes I may just put it out like TMI stuff, right? But the thing about it is that the people around me, the ones who are close to me, are so accustomed to that behavior that it doesn't stand out as anything, worrying or different, because they've been around me for so long, and they know that Chris could say something real off, or Chris could say something that would make you go, what? Or Chris would say something that is TMI, you understand? And he would just blurt it out there sometimes. And that is actually what I do. But I am really seeing the difference between when I do that, how I'm feeling then in that moment. It also has to do with the exaggerated sense of well-being and self-confidence, because in my normal state I wouldn't say certain things, but when I am in that elevated mood and I blurt out something, it is a boost in confidence for me to do something like that, right? Distractibility, I am a victim to that as well. So, and poor decision making. Well, I mean, who don't have a problem with with buying sprees? I mean, okay, yes, there are some people who are financially intelligent, okay, but I really have an issue with spending. I will spend today and then cry tomorrow, and And it's something that I am actually working on, and I'm actually coming up with strategies to, you know, curve the way I spend, whether it be not withdrawing an excessive amount from the bank, or even with the money that I withdrew, you know, walk with a limited amount, and that doesn't even really help to be sometimes, because I go into this zone as, if I want this, I'm a buy it. You understand? I like, if I see something and I like it, I'll buy it, and that is worse with shopping online. See, that shopping online is the worst for me, because I would go there thinking that I'm only going to order one or two, three items, and then boom, $2,000 in clothes. And it's ridiculous. And sometimes half of the things, like, I don't even wear. Like, I have clothes from my last order, which was a while ago, earlier within the year, in the beginning of the year. I have clothes that I haven't even worn, still there, and I have I don't really, go out as much as I used to before. But the thing about it is, they're just piling up there, and they're looking steel to me. Like, I don't want to wear it. I mean, I will probably find some way to, incorporate it and do something with it. But I want new clothes. You understand? And that is basically what I go through on a daily basis. Now, on a personal note, yes, on a personal note, one of these symptoms of poor decision, no, one of the reactions, or one of the actions of poor decision making, is hypersexuality, or sexual, or high risk sexual behavior. And I do struggle, right, with hypersexuality. And if you're talking about it, talk about all, right? So for me, hypersexuality is not too different from my other spontaneous behaviors. For example, like the unusual talkativeness, where I would just blurt out probably something inappropriate, or that is, too much information. Or similar to the buying sprees. It's like a spontaneous action, and or I would like to say behavior. So basically, I would go in a period, and like the period where I all of a sudden I want to be a writer, or I have this boost of confidence. Basically, I go into this period where I get this urge for the need of sexual activity, more abnormal than I would usually do, and I would be inclined to seek out or act on those urges without consequence. So basically, so where I'm getting at is that I sometimes partake in risky sexual behavior, and in the moment of seeking out something like that, you don't really care. You just want, it's like your brain is just wired to do something, and you just go about it anyway. You just go about it however you can to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. And it's only when the period is over, or sometimes after you actually you did what you did what you did, that is when it hits you, and you look back and be like, what the hell? You understand? For the sake of keeping this PG, I'm not going to go into too much details. You understand? But yeah, that is actually one of my one of the symptoms I can identify with my during my I would say is hypomanic stages. What I want to bring to your attention to it is that someone who has bipolar, who's living with bipolar rather, when they may go through these symptoms, these episodes, it may not be apparent to them that I am going through an episode, that they're going through the episode, right? For example, for me, it is only really like doing my research, talking with someone is when you can identify. But before that, everything to me was normal. It was like you are oblivious to this whole entire change of mood and behavior, and you are just living your life, spontaneous as it is, reckless as it is, and you think that it is not apparent to you in your mind that, am I doing too much, or is there something wrong? Like it is not apparent in your mind. And that is what I can attest to. In the moment of these episodes, you have no awareness in the change of your behaviors or the severity of what you are doing. And I think that is what Mr. Benjamin was trying to tell us in the first, in part one of our interview, when he spoke about the exaggeration in behavior, and that the person may not be aware of what it is they are doing, or the actions they may be doing, and that is how it can reach to a detrimental stage where the person can eventually harm themselves or others. So that's it for today. I actually wanted to speak on the severity of the severe symptoms of a depressive episode. But due to the time, I think it's best that we stop here, and we can continue that in our next podcast, and I can go much deeper in my experiences with that type, because that is the type I'm actually diagnosed with. And I'd like to say that doing this project is very insightful, and I'm learning a lot here doing this project that I am in, actually, therapy, or seeing my psychiatrist. And not only that, it's like for my development, I really believe that I'm being more confident with speaking, even if it's a mic. I was very anxious in the beginning. Still kind of anxious. It's still there, but I'm actually realizing that I'm getting better at it. So I think that's a good thing. And sharing this with you, I think, is very important, because mental health is a topic that we do not take seriously, and we do not see the severity of understanding mental health or mental illnesses. So again, I would like to thank you for tuning in. This was very insightful, and we'll continue next week. Don't forget to like or describe this episode on YouTube. Also, follow our Instagram page, MindTalk.tt, where I will be posting teasers of upcoming episodes and more information on bipolar. So until next time, I would like to thanks again. You stay safe and stay happy. Goodbye.